they're once again being hotly debated on in Europe. With over half of the EU's adult population fully inoculated, vaccine uptake now seems to be declining. This has sparked a discussion about whether or not the unvaccinated should face further restrictions in the public realm. This is bringing DW's Nicole Froelich from Berlin for more. Nicole, why is this causing such controversy?
Well, in Germany, like in many other countries around the world, vaccinated people currently enjoy the same freedoms as tested people. But with the accuracy of rapid tests increasingly under scrutiny and the Delta variant rapidly advancing, some prominent figures here are demanding a rethinking of the current handling. Now, critics argue that restrictions for the unvaccinated, and that would include tested unvaccinated people, would amount to a vaccine mandate through the back door. That governments would maintain their stance, saying, well, it's up to you to get vaccinated or not, we're not forcing you. But that large parts of the public sphere would then be off limits to the individuals in question. Proponents of these measures see it as a way of making vaccines more attractive to those who don't think it's necessary to protect themselves and those around them, but those opposed say it discriminates those who, for one reason or another, don't want to or cannot get the shot. This discussion is, of course, far from the actual vaccine mandates we're seeing in countries like France and Greece, where healthcare workers now have to get a shot to be able to work or receive pay. And that has a lot of people very angry, so much so that we saw violent protests against the measures in both countries over the weekend.
Now, Nicole, speaking of vaccines, the European Medicines Agency just greenlit the Moderna vaccine for children over the age of 12. Does that mean teens are now being vaccinated across the EU?
Not really. The EMA decision is really only a recommendation to EU member states. Every country now has to ratify national use independently. The BioNTech-Pfizer vaccine has actually had the EMA stamp of approval for use in underage patients for quite some time, and not many countries have started administering shots to teens. Denmark and France, for example, already offer vaccination to children over the age of 12, but here in Germany, the Vaccine Commission only recommends use on kids with pre-existing conditions. The committee says there isn't yet enough data on youth vaccination to make a more generalized call, but that argument isn't going to hold up much longer. There have been lots of children vaccinated in other countries, so the data gap is closing. Pressure is mounting not only because around the EU it now seems to be the young, unvaccinated population driving infection rates, but also because immunizing children would take a heavy burden off their shoulders and those of their parents, of course, especially when it comes to education. But in many German states, it's already too late to get kids fully vaccinated before the next school year begins.
Right now, we know it's peak travel season in Europe right now. Many people are once again daring to take trips abroad, but that's got authorities quite worried, doesn't it?
Very much so. 10% of all cases registered in Germany are currently attributed to travelers returning from abroad. Just last month, that was 1%. Right now, people entering Germany only need to quarantine or provide proof of immunization when they're flying in from high-risk areas. But it just seems to be the case that no matter where people go on vacation, they let their guard down. And really, after 1.5 years in and out of lockdown, who can blame them? But the German government doesn't want to sit idly by and watch holidaymakers drive a potential fourth wave. The health minister now wants to tighten the rules for travelers. As soon as this weekend, a negative test result or proof of vaccination could be required no matter where people come from and whether they arrive by air, by rail, or by road. That would, of course, be a major logistical challenge, bearing in mind that there are no border controls between EU nations. But other countries like Poland, for example, have had similar rules in place for some time now. The issue of making mobility and travel safe, though, is truly one of the major global challenges going ahead. This week, we saw the US saying they're not going to lift their travel restrictions for the time being, so the Delta variant really is dampening hopes of travel returning to normal anytime soon.
Oh, thanks a million. Nicole Froelich is from Berlin. She's with the DW.